Hi, everybody. Good to see you again, even if I can't see you, we are communing. We are existing in the same brainwave right now, and that matters. Especially right now when I'm assuming some of you have been alone for a considerable period of time. This matters. Again, hi. I care about you. I am excited that we can commune together. And if you ever just want to, email me and tell me how it's going, please, yeah, just unburden yourself because I'm around. I'll listen, and I don't want you to have to feel like there's nobody to talk to. So, hello, hello, and welcome to what I doubt you thought you were gonna do when you got up this morning. Because unless you got up this morning and you were like, oh, this week I will learn to be a puppet master who can manipulate other people, then you were wrong, because that's what we're doing this week in our course is about learning how to crawl inside people's brains, figure out what's going on there, and use it to your advantage as a persuader. This is why when I introduced the unit, I told you I was giving you a ton of power. If you learn these things correctly, then you can be a master manipulator, and you can do that either for good, which would be great, or you can do it for evil, which would suck, but at least you'll have learned it, so I guess I get paid either way, huh? But, what we're doing this week is covering what is known as the persuasive triad of ideas. These ideas come to us from Aristotle, who we've already talked about, in terms of his ability to make words come out of your mouth in ways that sound good and make sense, but in particular with these three ideas. Aristotle is telling us how to persuade, how to manipulate. Aristotle is telling us how to get other people to do exactly what we want them to do. He does that with three concepts, and we've kept the Greek names for these concepts because they're fucking cool and they're easy to remember. They're cute, they're little, they're short. These concepts are called ethos, Ethos, pathos, Pathos, and logos. Ethos, pathos, and logos. And here's what these three things are. And by the way, if you put these together, ethos, pathos, and logos, and you do them well, you are guaranteed to persuade. So, ethos is your character. How persuasive are you? And I'm sure you're thinking that's totally extraneous to what I'm doing. Everything I need to persuade with is in my speech. It's part of the content. But that's not necessarily true, because the speech is coming out of your mouth. And as such, people want to know who you are, what you stand for. They want to know what you look like or what you seem to exist for. Eh? And if they like that, they're more likely to be persuaded by you. So there's that. There's also pathos. Pathos has the same root word as pathetic, path. And that means that if you picture a sad little puppy in the rain that's pretty pathetic, then you're on the right track to imagining logo or pathos, because pathos is emotion. It's, can you make your audience feel feelings? And if you do, honestly, they will follow you anywhere if you do it the right way, because emotions, feelings, give us energy. And the more energy we have to do something, then the more likely we are to do it. So making your audience feel the feels, man, that's crucial to persuading. And finally, logos. Because it's cool if you seem like a great person, and it's cool if you can make us feel feelings. But oh boy, if you don't make sense, then we're out to lunch. We're like, you're a crackpot, we're not listening to you, this is dumb, we're leaving. Now, we've already covered logos. That whole unit, that whole speech 2 unit, where we learned all the logic and the syllogisms and the premises and the conclusions, that's all logos. So you're technically already an expert there. I'm just going to make sure in speech 3 that you're continuing to make sense according to what we learned, and then you're fine. But the other two, this week we're spending some time with ethos. In this lecture, we're spending some time with ethos and also with pathos, so that you do know all of them well enough to combine them in a way that's a beautiful package that people find attractive and want to open, and then eventually want to do whatever you're telling them. So today, or at least this lecture, I'm not sure on what schedule you're watching these lectures, so you could watch them all today, in which case, wow, your brain is going to be real excited. But at least in this lecture, we're learning about ethos. Ethos is the character of the speaker. Ethos is the character of the speaker. And when you're the speaker, ethos is you. Who are you? Or at least, who do you appear to be? You have to craft an image for yourself in the mind of the audience. And you have to do that because you've been in this situation. Anytime somebody new walks up in front of the room, everybody looks at them and thinks, who are you and why should I care what you have to say? You do this on the first day of every single class you've had. The professor walks up there and you're like, who are you and why should I care? Well, surprise, people do the same thing when you walk up to the front of the room and you have to give them a reason that they should listen to you. Ethos is rooted in something that in communication studies we call balance theory. Balance theory is the notion that you want to like people or want to like the same things as people that you like. Yeah. You don't want to like the same things as people that you don't like. It really is that rooted in character. And you've had this happen to you. I know you have. It's balance theory is the sensation that you get when, for example, you find out that somebody that you thought was really, really cool, maybe you found them attractive, maybe you just thought that their clothes were interesting, maybe you liked them as a well-rounded person, you find out that they really like Harry Potter. And you're like, I thought Harry Potter was weird and nerdy, but this person really likes Harry Potter, so I will give it a shot. Yeah, that's balance theory. Same token, if you really like Harry Potter, but you meet somebody who rubs you the wrong way, and they like Harry Potter, all of a sudden you start questioning your own like or dislike. Not because of anything that Harry Potter did, but because of this other person who is starting to affect your image of Harry Potter. That's balance theory. And that's what you do. If you get up and you start to give a speech and you don't seem like a likable person, then people don't like Harry Potter anymore. Yeah? But if you seem like an attractive, an interesting, an enticing person, then whatever you're talking about, people are more likely to give it a shot, even if they didn't agree with it before. And that's what you're going for here. So I am going to teach you how to craft a persona for yourself. And even if you're not really a person that other people might want to listen to, like, I don't know, maybe you go home and kick puppies. That's you on your own time. But at least in front of a room, I'm going to teach you how to sparkle so that people want to listen to you, and that means that they will like whatever you're telling them to do because they like you. That's what we're going for here. Keep in mind, this is completely rooted in audience perception. You can fake an ethos, and some people can fake an ethos really, really well. Now, is that a good idea? Not usually, because especially if you are an inexperienced speaker and you get up on the platform and you try to pretend that you're somebody that you're not, people see right through it. So it needs to seem genuine, and it's usually easier to base your ethos in your actual self. But if you're the kind of person that's just really likes to hoodwink people, fine, go ahead. I'll teach you how to do that too. But let's be ethical about this, yeah? And speaking of being ethical, here are the three things that if you show them as you are speaking, that people will think you're a good person and they will like you and they will want to be like you. Yeah, these are the three parts of ethos. The first part of ethos, the first thing you need to demonstrate if you want people to think you're a good person, is virtue. Hey, do you remember the speech 1 unit where we talked about all those virtues and you gave a little story and then talked about how a virtue was part of it, and in the end we all decided, oh, we should be virtuous people because that's a good ethical system. Hey, well, here's the deal. I taught you that because if you seem virtuous, if you seem to be channeling one of those virtues in your speech, people like you. We like virtue. We want to be around virtuous people. We want to be like virtuous people. So if you seem in your speech ethical, if you seem dependable, if you seem like you would never dream of bullshitting anybody in your entire life, that's ethos. That's good ethos. That's persuasive ethos. And you can make that happen in a lot of ways. You can tell stories that make you sound like a virtuous person. You can just use virtue terms that make people think, oh, well, they know about virtue and they must practice it every day. You can also kind of fudge ethos. And in terms of virtue, the way to fudge it, the way to create a persona is speak with a lot of energy, speak with a lot of self assurance, speak with dynamism. And if you do that, it's a stark contrast to speaking, doing things like gazing at your shoes, or like fiddling with your hair, looking nervous while you're speaking. If you're twitchy and weird, people think you're lying to them, particularly if you're not making eye contact with people. They think you're lying to them. And that's not virtuous. Yeah? So, one of the biggest steps you can take towards seeming virtuous is eye contact and is assurance and confidence in what you're saying. I teach you to do those things because it makes you look like a better person. So, do them, and your ethos will start taking care of itself. Now, here's the second part of ethos, though, because by itself, virtue's cute, but it's weird if you seem like a good person, but you don't seem very smart. People are going to listen to that. So, practical wisdom is the next step in trying to craft the image that you're a good person. Practical wisdom in Greek is called phronesis, and it's the notion that you seem to have some knowledge, at least, of the topic that you're talking about. So this may be specialized knowledge that you have. You may open up your speech saying something like, hello, I am here to give you a speech to tell you how to kill bugs that get into your house. I know this because my father is an exterminator. I have worked with him on several occasions, and I am pretty much an expert in all kinds of bugs. Yeah, that's ethos. That's telling people that you know what's going on. But you may not actually have specialized knowledge in the field you're talking about. You can also just generally seem like a smart person. You can seem like the kind of person who knows a lot about a lot. And if you have that kind of confidence, then people listen to you just as much as they would if you said, I have done this before and I know what I'm talking about. You can also fudge this part of ethos. By the way, if you want to look smart, dress well. Yeah, this is the theory behind that rule that you're supposed to dress slightly better than your target audience. If you do that, you look smart. And really, the ultimate way to fudge seeming smart, by the way, is glasses. And that's going to sound really weird. Even if you don't wear glasses, wear them if you want to look smart, because we have a cultural stereotype that people with glasses are nerds who, ruin their eyes staying up reading by candlelight or whatever. You have to have that kind of trigger in people's brains that says, well, friendly nerdy person, tell me all about the things. And then you do. So keep that in mind. If you want to look smart, wear glasses, but also sound smart, also cite things. That adds to your practical wisdom as well. And then you're good. Okay. So those are the first two parts of ethos, but again, they're not enough. Because you may seem sweet. You may seem smart. But the last thing you need to have to really bring the whole picture together is you have to care about other people. Because being sweet is fine, being smart is fine, but an audience wants to feel like you're in this to help them. So you have to have goodwill. You have to have some spirit of being there, giving the speech, not because it's in your own best interest, but because it will help the people you are talking to. You're there for them. And if people think that you're there for them, they're much more likely to listen to you than if it seems like you're selling something for your own benefit. You have to look like you don't have an agenda. You don't have to look, or you need to look like you are prioritizing the audience always before yourself. You're not here giving this speech for a grade. You're not here giving this speech because you want to look good in front of a bunch of people. No. You want to give this speech because the audience will be better people if they hear you give the speech. And if people think that that's true of you, then they'll listen to you and they'll follow you anywhere because you are a selfless human being, and we don't get enough of that in the world, do we? So that's how you get good ethos. If you can convince people that you are ethical, that you are smart, and that you care about them honestly more than you care about yourself, that's when you get a group of followers. So I'm sure you're thinking, there's no way I can do all of those things in a speech that I also have to cite sources in, that I also have to craft arguments in, and that I also have to do whatever pathos is in. You haven't learned that yet, but oh boy, you're about to. And it's hard. But if you follow Dispositio that you learned about last week, and you do that thing in the introduction that I told you to do, that's already one step. But let me teach you a couple of other kind of tricks that you can do to persuade an audience that you have ethos, and they happen very fast. And if you do them well, then you can just kind of wrap everything up in a bow and move on. So here's trick number 1, and that's called identification. If you want to establish your goodwill very quickly, all you have to do is use inclusive pronouns. All you have to do is say the word we. All you have to do is say the word us. And immediately you have created a sense that everybody is together. Everybody's in the same boat. And that's very, very different than the effect you create if you get up in your speech and you use language like I versus you. I versus you. It's the effect that you would get, or that I would get, let's say, if I got up in front of a classroom, or even if I got up in okay, let's do this. If I made a video right now and I was like, I noticed that a shit ton of you did not watch the video from last week, why don't you get your shit together and do your homework? Yeah, that you versus me affect that you get from that pronoun choice does not make people want to listen to you, does it? Whereas if I said, we are all in a real weird time right now, we all have to adjust to this. So I hope in the next week, all of us can figure out what we're doing a little better so we're all on the same page. Yeah. Isn't that nicer? Isn't that more charming? Isn't that somebody you want to listen to? That's identification. Make everybody feel like we're all in the same boat, and goodwill is done. The other thing you can do, and this also speaks to goodwill among other components of the other two, is sacrifice. Now, I don't mean like, don't sacrifice a goat or something during your speech, but what I do mean is show the audience that you have been willing to make changes for whatever it is that the speech is asking them to do, and they will feel better like they can as well. Because if you are willing to sacrifice for your speech, they can too. You can say things to the effect of, before I researched this speech, I thought that raccoons were the best animal in the world. I thought they were so cute. I loved that they had hands. And then after I started researching this speech, I saw what raccoons do to ecosystems, and now I have a very different stance on that particular animal. You made a sacrifice there, yeah? And that makes other people feel like they can change their mind too. Or you can say things like, before I researched this speech, I used plastic straws all the time. I did things like use a Kleenex once and throw it away. Sometimes I threw away Kleenex for fun because I thought it was entertaining to pull them out of the box. But after I researched this speech, oh man, I recycle. And they're like, oh, well, you changed your behavior, I can too. Again, if you can make it seem like you made a sacrifice, then you're good to go. So there you go. That's ethos. That's how you make yourself seem like a likable human being that the people watching you want to emulate and listen to. If you can do those things, and I see you doing those things in your speech, you will be persuasive. Next up, how do you crawl inside people's heads and make them feel feelings? Stay tuned for the next episode of Speech 101 at Northern State University.